Good afternoon, it's Sunday. So we had a long stream for us last night and I didn't get to bed till quite late, which is why I am starting this a little later than normal. Because pretty much I got up, there was a thunderstorm and the dogs went nuts. At 3 o'clock we had the government doing a phone test thing where basically all the phones that are connected to a network were supposed to go off and do the whole kind of like, there's a warning. Part of me feels uneasy that they feel this burning need to make one. Well, stop inciting problems then would be my first answer. So, indeed, we had those. That came up. It did its thing. But it goes, this is an emergency test. If there's a life-threatening emergency nearby, you do not need to take action. In a real emergency, follow the instructions and basically keep yourself safe. But it's one of those things that actually it's quite annoying because it goes off for a while, not very long, but a while, but you cannot silence it. You cannot go, yeah, I've seen that, thanks. It doesn't shut up. And of course I've got a work phone and my own phone, so I've got two of them at it. The dogs are going nuts. So, having known that was coming, although I didn't know that the dogs were going to go quite so nuts, I'm glad I was not streaming during that. So, we met lots of new friends last night. It was really cool. Got raided, I think, 3 times, maybe more than that. And my text-to-speech thing, I obviously need to do some work on it because while it reads out emotes, when you get 30 odd people all come in and spam loads of emotes at you, all I get in my ear is like, it reading out the names of the emotes at me, and well, it can be rather comical. So I started laughing at it, and I did have to apologise to them because it's not that I found their presence funny, although I did feel somewhat self-conscious. It was more the fact that my ear thing was too busy going, I've got a stupid message, I've got a stupid message, I've got a stupid message, I've got a stupid message. And you're like, I know, I can tell. So it did kind of overspam me a little, which was a bit much, actually. And like many British people, my default reaction to bad situations is to laugh at them. Never mind. So we find ourselves once again back out the pillow, trying to do sensible things and failing abysmally, obviously. Let's make these a bit longer. So, the more I make them longer, the more I feel somewhat concerned as to whether I've got enough thread on each bobbin. Just because I seem to let it out a lot more than I thought I would. And I think partly that has come about because when I was using the other bobbins, like the store-bought bobbins, and making the triangles, the thread slipped slowly on its own, and as a result of slipping, I didn't consciously make them longer. Therefore, you are less aware of the passage of the thread. Whereas like this, obviously, because I keep stopping and making them longer, you kind of are. So, you need to do... I do confess my arms feel very heavy today, so I probably won't be doing a huge amount of lace making. How are you? Oh, I so relate to that. I so relate to that. Absolutely relate to that. I think I mentioned I was off work last week, and I'm not sure I'm going to be at work this week. I'm trying to decide quite how to proceed at the moment. Because I'm done. I'm kind of I'm just done. So yeah, I don't know how that's gonna work. Everything just feels hard work at the moment. I hope you managed to recharge your people battery. I understand this is an important thing for people to do. Personally, it's an option I would happily live without. I'm itchy again. I haven't been this itchy for ages. I'm assuming it's partly the weather. Speaking of weather, where are the dogs? There's one. Hello. Where are you hiding? Oh, there's your bruvs. Okay. It suddenly dawned on me you'd moved. Because you were sleepies in the chair a minute ago. Yeah. Needs to go this way. So yes, I feel very drained of lots of things, especially enthusiasm and motivation. Really struggling with that at the moment. So I totally relate. And I do think it's good that we've got to a point in society where we can recognise that feeling kind of peopled out is a very valid and normal thing. Because obviously for years people didn't understand. And I get that the extroverts out there and the and the normal people and the people who find this, who would kind of go, I don't get it. And I'm glad you don't get it, because it's really not a lot of fun. But for those of us who do get it, it's kind of, it's like being hungry. It's not something that you can do you can change a lot by choice. Because we are required to interact with others as part of society, for we are generally unable to live life as hermits. So we are forced to do interaction, and generally it seems when you are least in the mood for it. So, you know, the day that you are done with people is the day that your boiler explodes and you've got to phone round and try and find someone to fix it. Or, you know, you get something in the post that's wrong and that, you know, they're going to charge you billions of squids for, you know, stuff that isn't yours. Or so it's not stuff you can put off and ignore. And yeah. Yeah. It's also hard when... Now, I don't mean wrong of your in-laws, please don't take it that way, but it's also hard when the people you've got round you... Well, what I was going to say is that it's very difficult when you are forced to be around people, but they're not the people you need right now. So it's a bit like going to the office, and maybe there's some annoying people in there that frankly you'd love to create a pair of concrete shoes for. But you have to go into the office and you have to have some really long, tedious meeting with some of these individuals. And it's not that you couldn't do the right people, but the wrong people is just too much. And as you say, you're at the in-laws, and so if for whatever reason they are not the people that your brain needs right now, that kind of makes it worse, because you know that you feel obliged to be people-y because, you know, well, they're there, and, you know, you've had to, you know, you're visiting and you're trying to do all the right things, but you just don't wanna, you know. And it's not necessarily that you dislike them. They're just not the right people for right now. So, you're always welcome here. Yeah. I try and avoid parties. Now, I think some of the reason I don't do parties is because I never had them as a child. So I never really got used to them. But I find parties with all the people who are all kind of like, ha 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 ha, and I'm just like, I'm not. I just kind of want to sit in the corner and hug the dog, you know? And I think because I never got used to them as a kid, I'm crap at them as an adult. And it takes me a long time to kind of recover from partying. Even though I don't partay, as the phrase goes, I am just being there, even hiding in a corner, takes quite a while to recover from. That's why. My arms are very tired. I feel like I carried lots of heavy things, but I did not. Never mind. We will keep trying. I think that's one advantage of doing this kind of streaming, is because while I'm here, I'm not here. I don't have that same level of pressure that there would be if you could see more of me. It is easier to do this when your batteries are kind of flashing. Battery, please replace, you know. I think that does help. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, it's not fully the answer, because obviously I still sometimes struggle, but we need some of you. And I also find for some reason that when streaming, I feel a lot hotter than I did when I wasn't. I don't know whether it's like, you know, feel a bit hot and bothered kind of thing, but gotta take jumper off. Which means I'm sure Mr. Fly will come and find me and flick me and annoy me. He does that. Which reminds me, why are you not doing your thing? Because you're not plugged in. Oh, you doofus. Yes, you are. Something else to look at later. I still haven't found my Allen keys. So, my other table is currently sitting in the middle of the floor. Hey, Neck Kisser. How you doing? Oh, thank you for telling me. I've been sitting here working away. You're not exactly missing out, but you know. I forgot to press the button because I'm a doofus. I could have sworn I did press the button. Oh, must have missed. You should be able to hear the little bobbins clattering in the background. Yeah, no worries. It's only been 20 minutes, don't worry about it. I definitely need... No, they live on a table. They don't need to turn it in. It's okay. Nah. Such is the way of life. It's easily done. Well, it especially is for me anyway. That could be a good thing. Bonuses are good. I must admit, I find myself torn about bonuses because for many, many, many years of my life, bonuses were never a thing. And all you got was your yearly salary. In the last 20 odd years, my employer changed. Yeah, they're not cheap. But my employer introduced a bonus. And part of me has a problem with the bonus systems in a lot of companies. Because, you know, I've talked to other people who get bonuses. Let's say you and I work really, really hard. But despite all that we do, the company fails to meet its target, irrelevant of the fact that you and I did everything humanly possible to help them achieve it. So then, you and I don't get our bonuses. But it's not our fault. However, should the company meet the bonus, but you haven't pulled your weight hard enough, they're more than happy to not give you your bonus. It feels slightly one-sided. And it's a bit like pay rises. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's a bit like pay rises in that the cost of living goes up, irrelevant of how hard you worked. And even if you worked, again, did everything humanly possible, you get a flat fee, which, you know, from my observations, often does not keep up with the cost of the world around you. And so, in essence, even though they gave you a pay rise, you now have less money to use and spend than you did before, because let's say you get a 2% pay rise, but everything's gone up 5% over the last year. Well, now you've got 3% less money to spend. Well, that's nice. I will say my current employer, because bear in mind, of course, it changed early at the end of last year. My current employer does also offer quarterly bonuses. Unfortunately, since joining them, this has not yet come into fruition. Yeah. But as I said, an awful lot of it is kind of out of your control. An awful lot of it can be out of your control, and it kind of... I mean, I do get that if a company hasn't got money, it hasn't got money. Well, you know, I'm not stupid here. But at the same time, it can be done in such a way. So I know people who, you know, as I say, who have bonuses, but their department can have worked really, really hard and be like, you know, hit 500% of their target, but they won't get bonuses because other departments didn't pull their weight, and as a whole, the overall average was less than target. And you're kind of going, oh, shut up, Alexa. It kind of puts people off putting in too much effort, when the truth of it is almost someone else's effort is more deterministic as to your bonus than your own. So yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's a little like the pay rise thing. Like I said, you know, if the company decides that there's going to be a flat bonus, you know, flat payout of 1%, whatever, right, as a pay rise, well, that's great when you're Mr. I'm milling millions at the top of the salary chain, right? Because 1% of that is quite a lot. When you're Mr. I earn minimum wage at the bottom of the pile, 1% of not a lot is even less, right? And, you know, when your pay rise kind of doesn't even pay for a pizza once a month, it kind of feels not worth the paper it was written on. And so I've always struggled a bit with that. You know, if a company is going to introduce a flat pay rise, I personally feel it would be far more sensible to make it a monetary value. So the flat pay rise is £1,000. That way, Mr. Minimum Wage gets quite a healthy increase to help him on his way to being able to afford life. And at those at the top who already earn a heck of a lot of money, who frankly probably won't really notice the increase, they get an increase, but it's kind of nominal. Now, it's probably a very horrible, and there's lots of people out there who will tell me why that doesn't work, but it just feels fairer on the people who generally... A company can feel top-heavy in that while it is a pyramid shape, so you have many workers, some middle management, upper management, dude at the top, right? When the people doing the work do not have half the income between all of them of the up, you know, it's not managers cut a line, workers, and the workers get half the salary. So all salary amount divided by 2 is not the workers. You just get less because there's more of you, kind of thing. It does feel that a company can be very top heavy. Now, I'm not saying management do not do important tasks, but without the workers, you have nothing. If all the workers do a shoddy job, the company goes under. If a manager does a shoddy job, the business can struggle, but it can still survive. You can survive a shoddy manager. can't survive shoddy workers. It does. It very much does. I'm not going to disagree with that. Depends a lot also on what they do. And I mean, in a reasonable sized company, there is bound to be at least one of each, right? There is bound to be someone who, how they weren't fired months, years ago is, you know, beyond the wit of man, right? And, you know, traditionally the phrase shit floats is often referred to because, you know, these people sometimes seem to climb the greasy pole, yet they weren't capable of doing anything that they've done to date, so then get moved on up out of the way. Well, surely the place to move them is out and get someone who can, you know. So yeah, very much understanding that one. I mean, one of the things that I've always, I would say jokingly, but I do mean it sensibly. Yeah. I've always said that when it comes to reviews, I've always had a problem with the average review process in a company. And I have heard I don't think I've yet heard of a company. Yeah. But as I was saying, the review process is your manager comes in and tells you how he thinks you did during the last year, whatever, right? But if your manager can't do your job, how can he honestly judge you for it? But moreover, when do you get to review what it's like working for your manager? Because I've worked for some assholes, and I've worked for some really nice people. And, you know, you can have a nice manager during a crap time as a department, and so the department will look like it was struggling, but it was struggling because it was a crap time for the department. Or you can have a crap manager that can make a good time look crap, and there never seems to be a kind of 1-over-1, as lots of companies call them, where you get to talk about what it's like to work for them. Because in my humble opinion, and again, you know, potentially controversial, if your job is to be a manager, you need to be judged on how you handle your staff, how you've motivated them, how you've worked with them. Not just because the man above you got all the yeses that he wanted. If people are leaving your department in droves because you're an arse, it needs to kind of come up. And I have yet to see a company where that really is taken into account. That, you know, the employees are asked for feedback on, you know, what is it like to work for this guy? What, you know, what suggestions would you have? Because, I mean, obviously some of them will be pie in the sky. But, you know, if everybody all says, you know, don't talk to him before 10 o'clock on a Monday morning because he won't have sobered up yet, kind of thing, right? I'm not saying I've had a manager like that, but I was trying to think of something obvious, right? Then clearly you need to talk to him about that, because Monday morning he's not someone who's going to get the best out of his team. And but we never seem to do that. We always have your manager tells you what they think of your work, but you never really have the opportunity to feed back to them what you think of their work. think if I ran a company, I would like to try and do it a bit differently for that very reason. As you say, there's often someone somewhere who is seem to be slacking, or to coin a phrase, is golden balls. In that, he is the golden child of the management, and basically, even if he completely screwed everything up, they'd still herald him as the saviour of the universe. And no one can entirely work out why, because, so far everything he's touched has turned to crap, and, well, it kind of doesn't fit, because, everyone else has spent hours fixing their mistakes. And not to cover up that they've made mistakes. The manager's come along and gone, this is wrong, this needs fixing. And the fact that the same person's got it wrong every single time seems to escape them, and so they fire it off to someone else to do now because it needs fixing, and their golden-haired child is off doing something else of potentially thing. And so, then when the public praise is going around, everyone mentions golden-haired child because they're the ones that they get to see, while in fact it's everybody else doing all the work. I've seen quite a lot of that over my time. And there is a bit of you that kind of can feel that, these things really should end up a bit different to how they are. Yeah. That's a good thing. And see, I think I have a lot more respect for a manager who doesn't just sit in their kind of office, whether it's virtual or otherwise, and just kind of lords it over everybody. A man who's actually in there kind of doing actual work and not just attending meetings. Yeah, you see, I can have a lot of respect for a man like that. Or woman, I mean, as in mankind. I can have a lot of respect for a man like that. Because, as you say, they're doing their bit. Despite other things that are going on, they're very much still doing their best with everybody. They're truly leading. They're at the front of the pack leading. They are not at the back pushing everybody forward, kind of whining, haven't you got there yet? And 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've seen quite a lot of the management style where it is they go to a lot of meetings, they keep lots of secrets, about what's coming up, so that they know that maybe the department's going to get shut down, or they know that some company's going to come and buy you out, and they keep it quiet. And by the time that it's all kicking off, of course, they've managed to protect their arse because, well, they don't want to lose their job. But they didn't protect anybody else. And I've seen quite a lot of that over the years. See, again, I have a lot of respect for a man who is not shouting at the lowest paid dweeb chase him, going after him himself, right? I relish managers who are much more actively doing the job. They're just also a manager. I have a lot less respect for those who are handed it on a plate and then act like it. And I know this is a weakness of my own, but it is much easier to respect someone who knows what is done, will help out, will be leading from the front, who expects no more of you than they would do themselves. All of those kind of things, right? If flooding's there and they're the man there with a bucket and the first one with a bucket to be bailing it out, it's very easy to have respect for people like that. When they stand on the table kind of going, work faster, it's very easy to not have a lot of respect for that. So, yeah, I have seen both ends of the scale. Now, it's not needless to say, and I do mean this, you can have someone who is purely a people manager and not part capable of doing the job that they're managing. But then they have to trust in the people that they have doing the job. You can't have it both ways. They can't then grumble every time someone advises them that that's not going to work, that's a kind of a bad idea. If they are not capable of doing it and can say, yes, but you've not considered X, Y, Z, right? If they just kind of make up some rubbish and expect you to blindly follow it, even though everybody knows it's never going to work, then, well, they're not leading, they're pushing you forward, and it's not necessarily going to work out for the best. And as I say, I've seen a few of those, and I've yet to see one that worked that well. Yeah. Yeah. That is not an easy thing to deal with after all. I know a former manager of mine, his wife had post-baby troubles, but they weren't PPD. She ended up with, they'd done a C-section, I assume, and it had split the muscles all the way down her stomach to the point you could put your hand in. It had, instead of rejoining back together like they're supposed to, it hadn't. It had separated even more. And this, of course, gave her a hell of issues because so many things she tried to do and, but... And it's good that the company has that room for allowance, right? In the... No, it's not ideal, and I'm sure he knows it's not ideal. But sometimes needs must, and... A lot of I did really well when my dad died. The manager we had was very understanding. My manager made a deal with me when my dad died, was that I would log in early in the morning every day and do what I had to do. As long as everything I had to do was done, if I didn't do anything the rest of the day, that was fine. So what it meant is obviously I did bare minimum, but the bare minimum to keep the, you know, my end of the stick up was done. Well, and that's the thing, you know, it's when you've got someone who's got a problem, as a team, if you can't come together to help them, the team mentality has failed. Now, again, it does depend to an extent what the team does. But if you can't allow for the fact that someone's having a bad patch, if you can't try and take each on a little bit to keep the place rolling until they're back on their feet and, you know, in a place where they are able to do their stuff once more. The team, it's not really a team, is it? It's a bunch of people working in the same room. Again, even if it's a virtual room, right? And as you say, I mean, I know that we've had times over the years where people struggle, or something's cropped up, and we've all done our bit to try and make it as easy on the person in question as we can, because, well, we're a team. And I won't say family, because we all know that any company who tries to pretend that you're a family is a bit weird, really. But that, you know, if you can't rely on your work friends, and you know, I'm not saying you have to love them, because, you know, you don't even have to like them, to be fair. But if you can't be professional enough to understand that they have a good reason, it's, you know, because we all know that there is a difference between slacking off and having a good reason. And as long as they've got a good reason, i.e., you know, bereavement, problems, and that it is kind of beyond their control to just walk in and fix it. We all know that exactly that. Anyone who calls it family kind of means they expect to be able to call you at 2 o'clock in the morning for unpaid work. Is how my brain reads that. And there are times, yes, yeah, fully, but it does depend on what they need. I mean, years and years ago, must have been 2008, 2009. Might even have been before that, because 2007 was the Great Flood, but our data centre was fine, and I can't remember if the melting was before the flood or after. So anyway, what happened was that for some reason the aircon decided that there was a problem. Yeah, that's when I have a problem. But so the data centre, basically the aircon in it decided that rather than being aircon, it decided that there was something going on and shut down. But it didn't turn the power off. So all the servers and all the things in the data centre that it normally was keeping at quite a cool temperature started getting warmer and warmer. And, well, if you've ever stood in a data centre and you stand at the right points, there are some damn toasty warm points, and that's when it's kept cold, because you have hot cold kind of aisles. So you have, Rory, can you not? So you have like aisles of servers, and you have like cold air coming in from the fronts, and out the back is the hot air, and then you've got the suction units to take the hot air away. Rory, you're just not helping. And if you stood in those are toasty warm. And that's when, like, the temperature in the data centre is like 16 degrees. Well, if the temperature gets warmed up... Well, this was our problem. obviously it kept quiet that it had turned off the aircon and kept the servers going. And, well, servers, a bit like car engines, the reason, I mean, obviously part of the reason you have oil in your car is so that you keep the engine moving, but also to help disperse the heat a bit, right? Well, the warm bits get warmer and the cold bits, well, they start disappearing, and we literally melted some things. The plastic on some of the things. So admittedly, they're, tertiary things like buttons but plastic started melting. It got that hot in there. A number of servers committed suicide over the heat because they just wouldn't do it anymore. Well, we thought we did, was the short answer to that. We thought we did, but it didn't. It decided to keep it to itself. And so so the first thing we know is kind of like, we've lost, well, hang on, we're losing stuff left, right and centre. What the heck, right? And, well, doors were open, fans were blasting, doors were opened, the whole shebang. So the door from the data centres, yeah, we were never allowed to find out. But because lots of things, almost someone had to run and hit the big red button, right? And as we all know, there are certain things that really take umbrance in that. And so we then spent a week and a little bit putting everything back together. Because obviously, once it had cooled down and they'd found out why the aircon had done what it had done and they'd got that fixed and all of those kind of moments, we then powered everything back up to see how bad it was. And well, lots of things kind of went, whoa, that was a bit of a shock, and continued. And we were like, good server. Then there were the things that went, no, I'm not doing that. And we had to call out repairmen. So we had, a bit of a procession of repairmen with spare parts because they'd cooked bits, right? We had storage guys working 24/7 in shifts, piecing individual fragments of discs back together because he hadn't written them all. And I had about 300 servers that heard, and I had to make sure each one was back. And so I had my list of servers, and I had marks that I was putting as to where I'd got with each one and prioritising them and all the rest of it. But we had one department. Yeah. Now, most people, quite frankly, were understanding because, well, it wasn't just their server, it was everybody's server. So they were quite understanding that there was a bit of a pecking order and that, they would be seen to as soon as possible. And, if you need to make your case, our manager is available for your wines, while we work. Anyway, we did a lot of hours unpaid because a true disaster had happened. No one minded. Nobody minded because a genuine problem had happened. It's when someone fucks about and leaves you with the pile of poo that you start minding. Anyway, one department decided that this server that they hadn't got was the most life-shatteringly critical thing in the history of the world. And because we had people piecing back the storage together, a number of virtual machines. Yeah. But we had the storage guys. Oh, we were yelled at, but there's yelling at and yelling at, right? But we had this one department who got really arsey about their server not being back and made the guys stop repairing servers to build them a replacement. Yeah, we have a good few. And I proved, after the fact, because I was busy, the server that they had insisted on this guy stop fixing things and build anew, which of course potentially has problems for arguably data that could get lost, because if it's not being tied into the file structure and it's sitting there, it's safe. But if you then say, make me a new one, it will take what it sees as free disk space. So you could be overwriting accessible and recoverable data with your new blank server because you were being a Karen, right? I proved that this server that they had insisted on and jumped up and down and, you know, almost threatened to get the whole department fired over, was a server they couldn't and had never used. It was not configured. It hadn't got the stuff installed on it. And they went, well, our documentation says that it has. And I went, well, it's your server. And if you logged in, it is not running that. You are not configured to use that server. That name is mentioned nowhere in your setup. You aren't even using that server. You could turn it off and no one would notice. You were not actually having problems. All your servers were back. Oh, but we use it. No, you don't. You can't. You can't be using it. No, we've had a few of our own. In fact, I live near a town very famous in the UK for one, in my lifetime. So, no, we have our own. We have our own. I know, he's being helpful, isn't he? Yes. We are being helpful. Little man. It was not put there to support your head, little man. He's a good boy. Just not helping. It is Doggo Nosy. Since I've been feeling a bit wonky, he is doing his little nurse trick, and this is part of it. He is currently kind of trying to sit on my lap, which he's a bit big for, and trying to encourage me to love him more, because, well, hugging dog fixes everything, of course. To a large extent, it kind of does. But I feel like you're going to sleep, my man. I think the little shit's gone to sleep. Can't quite see his eyeballs. Oh, they are open. Yes, you are alive. But he is a good boy. Big snog little dog. Not so little, mind, but you know. Hello, crackhead. What you want? What? You had a biscuit. I haven't had any food yet. No! You can get fed later. You will get fed later. That's the thing. Later. So we had quite a lot of raids yesterday. We had 3 raids, and one of them was quite big. It was quite a busy day on the stream yesterday. Let me check for pins. Good. And then this off. And this off. And rolly the thing up a bit. Try and find the hole. Try it somewhere. There it is. Put you over there like that. So yeah, we had lots of people come visit the stream yesterday, which was a little bit overwhelming at times. But it was good. It was good. Although I have been doing this nearly a year, you know that, right? Because we're in September now. Well, it has been nearly a year. Let's a quick check. They do make it hard to go back to the first one. So, back page. So we have the very first one was the 21st of September. So we have 2 weeks to go before it's on our first anniversary of lace making on stream. And what have we got to show for it? Half a net curtain that we don't talk about. It's fine. I don't begrudge the squares. I really don't. I was saying this last night. I don't begrudge the squares. Because I don't hate the squares. I just don't want them as my net curtain. I'm too conscious of the join. I did see something last night while I was uploading the video, while I started it off, which was a lady who had recreated something century kind of artifact that she'd found, and it was, let's see if I can find it. Now I don't know which group it was in, so bear with me. Because the other problem, as many of you well know, is that it might have been on Facebook. However, finding it can be a challenge, because when you look at Facebook, it doesn't show them in the order that they were posted. It will show them in the order that it fancies, frankly. No worries. Is it this one? So frustrating. There it is. International Lace Day. Yeah. She recreated this. Now, hang on, I can't see what you can see because I've got a thing in the way. She made individual little squares and sewed them together, or joined them together, which was based upon this. So the top one is a poor representation because it's a bad photo, and then here is what she made as a result. And looking at that, I mean, the squares, very crochet granny squares style, are distinctly part of it. But in something like that, when you are recreating a historical thing, it's not about whether you like it or not, It's, is it accurate or not, of course. So in that situation, the squares work really well because, well, that's how it was. And, you know, it clearly is a lot of work. So, you know, hats off to the woman. Very much. She's done a good job of it. But I think something like that shows why squares wouldn't make necessarily a net curtain, because you don't think a net curtain, you expect one semi-sheer fabric. You don't expect chunks. Now you can do panels, so much like we're doing strips, you can do panels. Hey, Mickey gets me. You can do panels because panels can work, and in fact there is a thing on Etsy which looks absolutely stunning. Let me show you the Etsy thing. I know I do lots of boomer showing you it on my phone, but it's because it's easier to find on my phone, to be honest. It's going to have gone now, isn't it? Because that will be... Yeah, it's gone now. That's typical. But there was basically a net curtain where you had kind of thick panels like this with a point on the bottom, but you had like birds in colour on a white background that worked really, really well. And as I said, I think, you know, it's nice in a way that we recognise that these days, but at the same time, you know, as you've said, you feel bad for the fact that you're not doing something that effectively you are kind of expected to be doing. And it is very hard because, to me, then I feel bad, you know, because I would also feel bad that I'm not doing it. That then makes me feel worse, not better. I don't spend an hour or two upstairs, you know, keeping to myself, you know, trying to recharge my battery, and then go down and brave the world, because now I feel worse because, well, I should have been down here, and you know, people will think and fearing people think badly of me for not having joined in, and you know, will be making, you know, kind of snide remarks behind my back. And I do suffer from, when I'm feeling bad, I do suffer from minor paranoia, in that I can't take things at face value. I feel that there's hidden subtext. So, for example, I got a text from my boss saying, hoping everything's going okay and you're alright. But my brain doesn't take it as he's just trying to check up on me and hope I'm okay. It's he's going to want to moan because I'm not back at work, and why aren't I back yet, and can't I just get over it? And that's how my brain feels about it all. And I can't really hide that, because, well, that's how my brain feels. And I suffer, as I say, I'd call it minor paranoia, because, you know, I think I'm giving people far too much thought in it than they probably are. In that they didn't mean anything by it, they're just kind of like checking in. But of course, like everything, it's dependent on the context of your own head, not what they meant when they sent it. And so you can't tell whether it sounds like that there is hidden subtext to it or not. And if your brain's in a bad place, it will tell you that there are, even when there aren't. The usual example I give for this is, if you call me a silly cow, on a good day, I'll laugh with you. On a bad day, I will feel so hurt. But what you said and how you said it didn't change. But how I was feeling when it landed did. And so if I was already full of self-doubt and loathing and all the other things that, you know, I'm good at, then, well, you know, it's landed on a person who will now use it as justification as to why they're crap, why they're useless, why they shouldn't be doing these things, why they're not fit for that, why they're not. And you can't always predict that, especially when you send a text message. You can't always predict the state of the person who's going to receive it. And so you can be sitting there happy as a pig in poo, laughing your bits off, having the day of your life. You send them a silly text because you thought of them or whatever, and it can be really deeply upsetting. Yet that's not what you meant. You meant nothing of the sort, but it's what you achieved. And this is why I've always said to people, you can't say to someone, when they say, oh, I feel this. No, you don't. You can't say that, because you are not in their head. If they say to you, I feel useless, you can say, well, you shouldn't, but here's loads of reasons why you shouldn't. Here's lots of good I see in you. But you can't say to them, no, you didn't. It's a bit like and I know we've talked about this one before, you didn't try. You can say someone wasn't effective. You can say that I've seen you do so much more than this. I don't understand why you've struggled with this. But you can't say to them, you didn't try, because you have no idea. As a child who spent hours trying to do their the homework to the point of tears of frustration from trying, to then be told you didn't try, well, it elicits one of two responses. Either the person goes, well, screw you, I'm going to prove you wrong, look. Or, fine, I won't bother then. And my gut reaction is fine, I won't bother then. If all my effort was not good enough for you, if everything I could humanly possibly do was not enough, I won't bother wasting my effort next time. And it's not the right answer. It really isn't. But it's also how my brain feels. Brains are annoying. Put you up on the stick. Oh. A bit more room over here. Slide you around. You. Make you all a bit longer. Let's work you down a bit first. No. Shame my neighbour's visitors are leaving or something. They've had visitors all weekend. Yeah. I mean, our weather is completely confused at the moment. So we had a massive thunderstorm earlier. Um, but they also keep talking about, are we going to have another heat wave? And you're like, can we not? Can we opt out of that? Can we not buy that package? Because, well, as you know, we Britons don't do heat very well. Nothing about England is designed for heat. And so it is that kind of moment of, it's just not what we need, you know. We need you and you. So yeah. But it's also not been helped that, especially this year for some reason, I mean, our weather forecasters are terrible, frankly. And I'm not saying it's easy to predict the weather. I'm sure it's not. But the number of times you've got, oh, it's gonna be like 40 degrees C, and then it's not. Or it's gonna be, it's gonna be snow, and then there's not. And it seems to be getting worse. They like scaremongering everybody, or they seem to. And so, that like today, there was this, oh, it's going to be horrendous, it's going to be torrential, it was about 10 minutes. So yeah, there was a few thunders and a bit of lightning, but it was 10 minutes. It's not like it was 6 hours of it, And I do think it is good that they warn that there will be some for those with PTSD and who are triggered by these kind of events. But at the same time, you need to kind of tone it down as there will be a thunderstorm, but it will be a short one. Not, oh, torrential thunder and... No, it's not. And that's what I mean, is I am aware it is not an easy job. But at the same time, there is a little bit of you that kind of goes, I mean, I've always known that, predicting, when it comes to, say, the Formula One, right, they have weather balloons and trucks and things set at strategic points, feeding back in the weather, so that as the wind is moving and the weather is moving and all those kind of things, they have almost the down to the second when it's going to start raining, or when the rain's going to stop, or when the sun, all of these things. Yeah. And it's kind of frustrating because, obviously, if I want to know whether it's going to rain or not, if I've got friends in like 8 different directions, you can kind of go, ping, any of you got rain? No, chances are in the next 10, 15 minutes it's not going to rain, right? Oh, internet fart. But at the same time, the further advance you try and predict it, so if I move those friends now 200 miles away, well, there is that, but what I mean is though, is that, if you try and move it, so what's the weather going to be like in 2 hours? Well, all it takes is a bit of a deviation and suddenly it misses you, or suddenly it hits you. I've got where they're at with radar included, and but at the same time, when you've got, you know, all of the local news things going, oh my god, tragedy, it's gonna be, you know, there's this horrific thunderstorm, and it's 10 minutes, and it's like 10 minutes of thunderstorm, dude. It's you know, it's, I mean, it did rain, but if I tell you the ground's dry now, it wasn't that much rain. And yet it was kind of like, oh my god, you know, you should be prepared for this. And stop scaremongering. You know, we all know the story of the boy who cried wolf. And our local news thing, Gloucestershire Live, I'm going to name them, is horrendous. The number of times you get this post and it'll say, like, you know, tragedy strikes, you know, mass pile up on the motorway. Yeah, the other side of the country. But they do it in such a way that you fear it's here. So, of course, you go look and then you go, that's not even here. And that was like a week ago. And what the fuck? And so Gloucestershire Live is absolutely terrible for it. They love to, you know, nearly every post they ever do on Facebook is followed by the, Edinburgh of Gloucestershire then. Or, you know, London, Gloucestershire. You know, it's not that we don't want you to report the news. We have no problem you reporting the news. But stop acting like it's in Gloucestershire. You know, it's... And so one day they will post something and everyone's going to go, oh, fucking whatever, and not read it, and it'll be actually valid, you know. Right, I'm going to do this last little spider, this one, because that's the 15-inch mark. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to call it a day, which I know is a very short day today, but I did a long night last night, and my arms are feeling less heavy, which is a good thing, but I also need to do some food and try and work out what the hell I'm going to do tomorrow, so I'm going to do this. Welcome back. So, we're a bit short. Let's take you out a sec and make you slightly longer because you're being awkward. Right, put you back. There you go. So, time for a photograph. Hang on. Clean the lenses on the back. That was pretty shit. Wobbled at the last moment. Oops. Let's try that again. There we go. That's better. It says quickly looking for hideous mistakes. Because we all know they can happen. Don't see any obvious ones. Doing quite well generally. So anyway, I do apologise for the fact that today has been a bit shorter than usual. But I should be back tomorrow. I've got to go off and work out what I'm doing tomorrow. How I need to work that out. As well as I need some food. Because I haven't eaten today. And as I was up till kind of like 12 hours ago, I stayed up a lot, you know, nearly 12 hours since I last... Relapse, text me and explain me that one, my brain's not following. So yes, I should be back tomorrow. I thank you all very much for joining me. I apologise to those who are more recently arriving and wondering where the hell I'm going. But as I said, I do apologise, but it was a long one last night. So I'm going to go off and do things like make food and stuff. Take care, everybody, and I shall see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.